Everybody, welcome back to the Insider's Lounge. Today we have another special episode. Travis, thank you for joining us and feel free to introduce yourself.
Yeah, Chad, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be an insider in the Insider's Lounge now. This is great. My name is Travis Thomas. I'm a performance coach, specializing really, Chad, in mindset, sort of team dynamics and culture. And so I work with a lot of corporations as well as a lot of sports teams, youth college and professional sports teams on the mindset side of things. And then just sort of overall, that team concept and culture. And so, yeah, that's what I do. And I'm, love what I do. And I'm happy to jump in and talk about it.
Yeah, I've been so fascinated with your career, but also just your specific profession now. It's something that I haven't been able to dive into in the past. So I'm looking forward to unpacking the whole thing. But first, I want to get into, we always ask the first question: what are your first soccer memories in your journey? Whether it was as a young boy watching a World Cup or something, I'm sure there's a memory that you can remember as the very first.
That's funny. I haven't thought about this, so I'm literally going to go with what's the first thing that pops in my head when you say that. And my older brother, I was the youngest in the family. My older brother, who I looked up to, still do, 4.5 years older than I am. And he was playing soccer, and I grew up in Flint, Michigan. And every summer it still exists. It's called the Flint Olympian Games. And Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, and Flint, Michigan, they are our sister city in Canada. And so Flint and Hamilton would do our own version of the Olympics every summer, where one year they would host it, the next year we would host it, and you would go back and forth and play them in sports. And so my brother made the soccer team. So I remember being a little kid, probably 6 years old, and driving across the river, the border to Canada to watch my brother play soccer. And I fell in love with it, at that point. And I just wanted to be like him, and I wanted to play soccer. And I remember going and seeing the movie. It was out in the movie theater, Chad. I don't even know if you've seen it. Is the soccer movie called Victory. Do you remember the soccer movie called Victory?
I can't say I do.
Chad,
I'd be lying.
I feel like this is a blasphemy, Chad. I feel like we need to stop the podcast now. You need to go watch it. It's Sylvester Stallone. It's Michael Caine. It's Pele. It's a World War II movie with soccer at the heart of it. Victory, everybody. So from that point on, it's the magic of a Pele bicycle kick in that film. And I've been in love with soccer ever since, Chad.
One of the first things, first of all, I'm sorry I haven't watched that. Sylvester Stallone. I would have never thought the two have been together in a movie, but that is fascinating.
Yeah,
that's my homework for the day. I got to go watch that after this.
Victory, without a doubt. Yes.
One of the things I've been diving into is just the brain in general, the mental side of football and soccer, but also just in general. I find it so fascinating. And I think a lot of it stems from a lot of different issues, but also you can learn so much from someone from their childhood. So I'd love to dive into, you mentioned your brother as sort of that idol or someone that you could look up to, but I want to know a little bit more about your childhood. How was it growing up? Where did you grow up? What were some of the things that maybe linked to what you're working on today, whether it's, I know you got into improv later on and more of the mental side now.
Yeah. So again, grew up in Flint, Michigan. Growing up in Flint, in the mid '80s, Flint produced two things. They produced General Motors cars, and they produced a lot of professional athletes for being such a small town. And so Flint was just a really small city in Michigan. But sports were huge there. And I think the infrastructure at the time really helped kind of produce high level athletes. I wasn't one of them. My dad had a family business, hamburger restaurants. And I grew up and the city was just very kind of indelible in my upbringing. But soccer and sports were my passion. But I think early on, Chad, I kind of knew I was surrounded by like amazing athletes. I never felt like I was one of them. I thought I was good, but I was never great. And I always had a sense that I always felt different. I always thought that I wasn't, not only I wasn't physically strong, I didn't feel mentally strong as my friends or my teammates. Now the question is, was that true, or was that just the narrative that I was telling myself? And so I think, as I progressed and I went and played soccer in college, and was good, but wasn't great, and kind of struggled with the mental side of things. I think that was sort of the main reason. I never had a desire to sort of get into this kind of work, but as it sort of evolved, I think when I look back at the main reason that I gravitated towards sort of the mental side of sports and just the mental side of life is because I struggled with it as a kid. And as I started to kind of grow and learn and understand it more and realizing like, oh, this is actually really, really normal. Most people struggle with some of these things in some regard more than others, and we've really made it kind of this ambiguous, weird thing that we have a hard time talking about when it really doesn't have to be that way. And so I think as my career has kind of evolved, I've really enjoyed trying to demystify the mental aspect of sports, mental aspect of life. And really just kind of, helping people and helping athletes have some of these little light bulbs go off that sort of takes a little bit of the complexity out of it.
You hinted there that you were a college athlete. So Principia College. I think I got the name right.
You nailed it. Well done, Chad.
You had a bachelor's in English language and literature. And then obviously you were a college athlete on the side. You were a soccer player there. So I'd love to know, I always like to understand the balance. Everyone sort of, their college days were different for everyone, where some struggled with the balance of being an athlete and being in school as well. And others excelled in it and did quite well. So I'd love to hear your experience in college and a little bit more of an understanding of your time there.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, so I got an English degree because I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I would much prefer to write a paper than flunk a multiple choice test because I could BS my way through a paper, and so I had a pretty decent ability to do that. Thus, the improvisation career that came later. On the soccer side of things, it was a Division III school. I kind of went there because I'm like, I think I can play at this level. And again, with Division III, compared to like Division I, Division II, there's a nice balance, right? You're obviously really busy in season, but your off season is much more balanced, right? You have a true off season in the winter and the spring, and to be able to concentrate on other things beyond just soccer. And so, like again, at that time, right, there weren't a huge amount of distractions on campus in Elsa, Illinois. And so it was just it was a really, really great college experience. I got to play the game that I loved, and went to a beautiful school. Again, having no idea what post college was going to look like. But as an improviser in spirit, I just thought I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
I'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out, but never thinking it was not on the radar at all, Chad, that I would, leave sport, kind of get away from it, and then kind of come back in a totally different capacity, kind of in the leadership and mindset space. And so, I had no idea what I was doing. And here I am today sitting at 50, and I still have no idea what I'm doing. So I don't know if that helps people or hurts people, but it's true.
How did you look back at that English degree, and how has it benefited your career? Both, I know we're kind of splitting it into your improv side when you were first working right out of college and sort of now. I'd love to know some things that maybe you look back at during that degree and you think, oh, it's actually something beneficial that I still use today and on a daily basis. Yeah,
I mean, I look back and I had to. I look at it's stupid, Chad. I'm like, why in the world did I go with an English degree? Because it's like it was an English literature degree. So I had to take all these classes. I had to take like romantic literature and British literature and all these different classes. And it's like, it's one thing to have to read a bunch of stuff that I'm really not that interested in and then write a 10-page paper. I remember writing a 10-page paper on Ode to a Grecian Urn. Yeah, let's find that paper somewhere, Chad, and see 10 pages. I remember I wrote it on Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm like, what am I? So to answer your question, what I take away from that major was it really, I really learned how to write, and I think most of the work that I do, nowadays, it's having to be able to communicate yourself and express yourself. When I got into comedy, it was being able to write comedy, to write sketch, and having that background and that experience of being able to compose and write. And then fast forwarding to, 2015, 2016, when I wrote my first book, that writing experience from college gave me a little confidence to in my ability. And so writing that first book, and, that book, I self-published. It wasn't a New York Times bestseller. But it opened a lot of doors for me, and Chad, it ultimately opened the door for me, to get a job with the U.S. men's national soccer team. And so I look back on that English degree, and I'm like, woo, man, that English degree helped me get a job with the national team. If I connect the dots that way. So, again, it's like, I wasn't great when it came to memorization and like facts and figures and all that kind of stuff. But I could sit down and like, all right, I think I can express myself, in writing more than I can, just sort of memorization.
There's a big struggle with my generation now, I would say, where they're coming out of university, they have their degree, and they're kind of lost on what's next. It looks like there's no jobs available. It looks like there's nothing next. So I'm curious, your transition out of university, what was it like, and what were sort of those steps that you took to set up yourself for a career and something that you'd actually be passionate about, and something that you could take on and spend years in the industry or that sort of passion and career?
Yeah, and I totally understand sort of that feeling that people coming out of university and coming out of college right now, right? My daughter graduates from college next year. I've got a bunch of nieces that are in the same boat, right? And you're kind of like, oh, I've got that degree now. Now what, right? Where's that person who's just handing me job? I have degree. Where is job? And we know that that's really, really not the case. And so, and it's okay, right? When I think about like the college, university, education, like that's about finding your independence, finding out who you are, trying things, discovering things, going through things. But it's like, it's just post university. It's just that next step. And it's like, what do you want your next step to be? And for that small percentage of people who really know what specific career they want to do, you know what? Find the best entry level position that you can, even if it's a unpaid internship. Get your foot in the door and just start getting some experience, because that's going to open more doors. If you don't really know what you want to do, try anything, right? Just go out there, right? Go to a different part of the country, or just get any opportunity that's just going to expose you to an experience, and you're going to go, yeah, I like this. I want to do more of it, or this isn't for me, but maybe this is. And I think it's that curiosity. I love just the idea that, action is the antidote, right? When you don't know what to do, well, take action, right? And that action will lead to another action. And so, when I was at IMG Academy as a leadership coach, for 3 years, and we would have interns that would work for us. And they would be like, hey, some of them were getting their master's degrees, right? They're getting their master's degrees in different things. And they'd be like, hey, Travis, like, I'm looking for this job, and, it's only an internship, and I've got my master's, and this job is only an internship. And I feel like, I'm more qualified for this job. And I'm like, no, take it. No, apply. Get it. You're no offense to anyone. Your master's degree means nothing. Your college degree means nothing until you get your foot in the door. And now you can just start to let people see what you have to offer. And so I'm all about, my path. And again, it's, I know my personality is wired this way. I'm very okay not knowing what the next step is going to be. But just taking the next step, not knowing where that's going, right? The mantra that my wife and I live by, it's an old African proverb, which is leap and the net will appear. So she and I are really good at the leaping part, and trusting that whatever is below us, whether it's rocks or a net, like we'll figure it out, because it propels you into a new reality, which is what improvisation is all about. It's not knowing where it's going, but being able to respond to whatever is happening. And for those of you out there, if you haven't read the book, I think it's Range by David Epstein, which is all about this idea of just, really embracing lots of experiences and general knowledge. And that's the best way to become an expert in anything. And, so yeah, I totally empathize with the person that is like, I'm out of university now, and I'm like, now what? And yeah, I was that kid. I went home and like I said, my dad had hamburger restaurants. I worked for him for a couple of years. Like, what am I doing? I don't know. I tried a little bit of radio and I tried some advertising writing, and I was coaching my old high school soccer team as an assistant coach, just like doing stuff. And then I got married. My wife is like, we're not living in Flint. I was like, all right. And so now we went to St. Louis, and I tried working, for my brother-in-law in sports, and that didn't work. And then we moved to Boston and took jobs, entry-level jobs there. And that's where I found improvisation, right? Which then completely changed my life. And it was just, but it's a series of just being curious and taking action.
I love that improv mentality. I've never thought of it in terms of using it in life. That just, you almost gotta just put yourself out there, and things will figure themselves out. I really like the idea behind that. Let's get into the improv sort of comedy scene. You ended up spending, I think, between like 15 and 20 years in the industry. So I would love to hear sort of the initial sort of jump. You mentioned maybe radio was the link to it, then moving to Boston sort of really got you connected in the scene. But I'd love to hear sort of a summary of your years spent in the entertainment industry.
Yeah. So, I always loved comedy growing up. I went to that small school, and I think over the 4 years that I was at school, they would occasionally have like these open mic, stand-up comedy events. And so I did it twice, and I kind of had like a little bug, like, ooh, I want to do more of this. And I always was enamored with improvisation, specifically for those of you who know improvisation, maybe through Second City or the TV show Whose Line Is It Anyway? That's improv, right? It's creating something on the spot with no script, typically with a group of people. So my wife and I moved to Boston. We were young, newly married, living in the city, loving Boston. One of the first weekends that we were there was a new improv theater that opened up in the north end of Boston called Improv Asylum. They're still there. They're still crushing it. A new theater just opened in New York City. And I'm like, hey, let's go to an improv show. So we went. Their main stage cast 6 actors on stage, and for an hour and a half, they just crushed it. And I was like, holy cow, how do you do that? How do they do that? How do you create that together, and the creativity? And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. It's like magic. And so I was like, hey, do you guys offer classes? And they're like, yeah, we have a training center, a 6-level training center. I'm like, well, I'll just take a, level 1 class, 8 weeks. And I was hooked. I was hooked from class 1. And I wasn't taking classes thinking I was going to be a performer. I was just taking classes because it was fun and I wanted to do it and I wanted to learn. And so level 1 turned into level 2, turned into level 6. And I'm graduating from the training center, and when you put on a live performance for an audience, and they just happen to be having auditions for their touring company. They're like, just, you should audition for it. And I auditioned for it and I made it, which was crazy. And now I'm performing, a couple times a week. And then I just kind of worked my way up the ranks, and I ended up on the main stage cast, about 2 years later. And I'm teaching in the training center. And I'm like, wow, I just had a blast. It was amazing. And then we had our first child, and we didn't want to do Boston winters anymore. And we moved to Florida. And I found 2 guys in Jupiter, Florida, where we were living. One had just moved down from Boston. He was a former Blue Man and Blue Man Group. And the other one was a local actor. And the 3 of us said, hey, let's do an improv group together. And our one friend had a theater to perform in. And, so I started in Boston in 98. The 3 of us started our group in Florida in 2004, and we still perform. And so this November, maybe October, Chad, I think this October, Chad, we are going to do our 20th year show together, the 3 of us. But add it all together, and this is like year 25 or 26 for me with improv. And then that improv then became the springboard into what else can I do with this? And that's what eventually got me back into the coaching world.
Yeah, one of the initial thoughts I thought of is we sort of mentioned this improv mindset where you can just sort of use it in life. I'm curious the learnings or the understanding that you took from improv, from comedy, that you brought into the coaching side of things. Obviously, you mentioned that you're focused on mindset, sort of team dynamics. I'd love to hear how that's been able to sort of been used as an advantage now in your new career.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And please don't take this as a shameless plug. So my company is called Live Yes And. So Yes And is the basis of improvisation. And so the live part is to your point exactly, Chad. It's like, how do you take these principles, these concepts, these ideas of improvisation, and how do they apply to the real world? How do they apply to athletes, and how do they apply to executives, and how do they apply just to anybody? And that's really what I wanted to do with my company, right? And again, I was at IMG Academy for 3 years, where I was using a lot of these principles to help young athletes from a mindset standpoint and a team standpoint. And I was relying on a lot of improvisational games, activities, but really concepts to help them deal with adversity and resilience and confidence and courage. And so I knew there was something to it, right? This is a niche. There's something here, and I want to be able to bring that. And so when I left IMG in 2015 and started off my own with Live Yes And that's what I've been doing ever since. And then that in 2016 is like, I wanted to put all those ideas into a book to explain that. And that's the book that I self-published in 2016, which is called 3 Words for Getting Unstuck. Those 3 words are Live Yes And. And so improvisation is all about dealing with the present moment, being fully engaged in the present moment and collaborating with it. That's what yes and means. So Chad, if you and I are doing a scene together, you and I are on stage, we walk out, we're like, hey, everyone, for this next scene, we need to get a suggestion from the audience. What is something that you wouldn't expect to find in your dad's garage? And someone yells, a pink flamingo. Awesome. We will take the suggestion of a pink flamingo. The lights drop. You and I are in the dark. We have no idea what each other is thinking. The lights come up, right? I look at you, you look at me, and I have to trust that whatever I say, you're going to say yes and to me, and whatever you say, I'm going to say yes and to you, right? And you look at me and you're like, hey, Travis, help me blow up this flamingo pool raft, right? And all of a sudden, boom, there's your idea to me. You just gave me an idea. And I say, yes and. I can't believe we're throwing this awesome party with mom and dad out of town. Right? Now we know you and I are throwing a pool party. The pink flamingo is the pool raft. So all we're doing is and now you're going to yes and my idea, and I'm going to yes and your idea. Yes and. So what does yes and mean on stage? Yes is acceptance. I accept your idea as real. And not only do I accept it, I'm going to build off of it. I'm going to collaborate with it. Well, that's the and. So yes, we are throwing a pool party, and, Jimmy's going to bring the keg. Yes, and, right? I hope the cops don't get called like they were last time. So we're just creating a story one yes and at a time. Well, but if you take that off stage and you apply that to life, all life is, Chad, is one yes and after another. I'm not controlling what is happening to me, but I have to say yes and to it, right? Like, oh, if I'm getting married this weekend and it's an outdoor wedding and it's thunderstorms, I don't have to like that my wedding is being rained on, but I have to say yes to it. Yes, it's raining and we need to throw up the tent, right? Yes, it's right. So yes is acceptance of the reality, and is how we respond to it. Well, what is sports? What is a soccer player doing on the field hundreds of times a match, right? Every time that ball moves, it's a new reality. So so from a mental standpoint, it is creating this muscle memory ability to accept whatever is happening as quickly as possible and to adapt to it, to respond to it. Hey, we're supposed to be crushing this team and we're losing 1-0 at halftime. Yeah, we're losing 1-0 at halftime. That's the reality. And what do we need to do? Right? We need to be more aggressive on the ball, right? We need to make better runs, right? So yes and is just this tool. It's a mental tool for, I call it radical collaboration with reality, right? When you're living yes and, you're in radical collaboration with reality instead of arguing or fighting with reality. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it, right? So when a global pandemic gets dropped in your lap, right, we don't have to like it, but we have to deal with it. We have to accept it. The yes is the acceptance, the and is the response. And so from an individual standpoint, for me, that's how yes and becomes a tool to help people deal with adversity, challenge, just any obstacle thrown their way. Well, from a team standpoint, right now as a teammate, how do we get yes and into our locker room? Well, again, just like it shows up on stage, there's a mantra. This is where one of the mantras is super great, Chad. There's a mantra in improvisation where if you and I are on stage, like that flamingo scene, if you and I are on stage, my goal is to make you look brilliant. As your partner, my goal is to make you look brilliant. What's your goal?
To make you look the same.
To make me look brilliant. And anyone else who comes into our scene, what's our goal? To make them look good, and they're trying to make us look good. Is that an energy that you would want in your locker room as a soccer team?
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone there trying to make each other look good, right? Let's look at Messi for a second, right? When Messi's on the ball, what is he about to do? He's about to make someone look brilliant. Mm-hmm. Right.
Either himself or his
teammates. So, and when I work with teams all the time, I'm like, all right, I want you guys to think of the best teammate you've ever played with. Could be in this locker room, could be someone else. I'm like, think of that teammate, picture them in your head. All right, now just give it to me. Like, what are the qualities that teammate had that made you love them so much as a teammate? And they start coming out. Boom. He or she was positive, right? Was always helping me out, right? And all these qualities. And you make a list and you're like, not a single one of you said, oh, they were so talented. They were the best player on the team. No, it's like, it's all these qualities that really aren't talent based. They're just, they're character based. And I'm like, all right, all those qualities, none of those require talent. They just require intention. I'm like, why aren't you that teammate? Or just be that teammate. Go out there and be the teammate that makes your teammates look better, that makes people want to play with you. And then, again, being on the coaching side now, helping players, I'm like, you realize, right? Coaches are looking for the player that makes the players around them better, right? Coaches are looking for the player that they can trust, the player that's going to be a value add in the locker room and not a toxic distraction in the locker room. And so when you step out on the field with the mindset of, I'm going to make my teammates look good instead of, I'm going to make me look good, it completely changes not only the energy of your performance, but it also changes the energy of the team as a whole.
Yeah, so we've spoken through many of the different sort of organizations, the athletes, the different people that you've been able to work with now and get a better understanding of more of the mental side of their game. So I would love to hear some of your learnings and experiences from them. Like, what could people just listening to the podcast, listening in now, learn from those high level athletes, high level business performers, things that you see that are unique to others that you might experience on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. I mean, that's a great question, Chad. I mean, I think, obviously this takes someone at the professional level or at the national team level. And obviously their talent and their ability is elite, right? Like they have an elite talent, they have an elite ability. And then from there, what is it that allows someone to excel or succeed? And what is it that prevents talented players from maybe staying or making that next leap? And I think really sort of the mental aspect of it is key in that standpoint, right? I think the thing that high level athletes and performers have in common is that there's a resilience, right? That they demonstrate the ability to be resilient. And what is resilient? Really, resilient is just the ability to keep going, right? Get knocked down, get back up, right? Run into an obstacle, figure out a way to deal with it and get around it. Resilience is just, there's a competitive fire, there's a desire, there's a willingness, there's a self-belief that whatever I run into, even if I don't succeed, I'm going to be able to work my way through it, right? And that's what resilience is. What often stops most people is that when we run into some of those obstacles and those adversity, we allow them to stop us from progressing. And those high level performers, they can't get to where they've been if they haven't had to be really resilient along the way. And I think there's an interesting thing to that too, Chad, which is, when I talk to athletes all the time, and I start to ask them about the mental aspect of their game. And a lot of times I'll be like, hey, like, I remember asking a national team player, and I was like, hey, do you like to play angry, or do you like to play with joy? And he's like, ooh, I don't know. He's like, that's a good question. I'm not sure. And then a lot of times you're like, hey, tell me what mental routine do you have? And a lot of times guys are like, ooh, I'm not sure I have one. And so there's 4 levels of thinking. And again, for those of you who are listening, I'm actually not a psychologist. I've been trained in mental skills and I've been trained in personal development, but I'm not a psychologist. So I'm not someone who pretends to be an expert of the brain. But there are 4 levels of thinking, and there is unconscious. There's unconscious competence, which is I don't know how I do things well. I do things well, but I don't know how I do them, right? There's conscious competence, which is, yeah, I do these things well, and this is why I do things well. I understand my ability. There's unconscious incompetence, which is I don't know what I don't know. There's also conscious incompetence, which is, hey, I have no idea how to do that, and I know that I don't know how to do that. From a performance standpoint, what I try to help athletes and performers do, Chad, is move from unconscious competence to conscious competence, right? Which is, hey, I've noticed, like, do you notice that you do these things really, really well? They're like, yeah. I was like, all right. We want to be able to repeat those consistently. Yeah. So we want to take that unconscious competence and turn it into conscious competence so that you can create habits and routines around that so that you can repeatedly and consistently do that. If we don't know, what we do to allow us to perform well, then it's just kind of like, oh shoot, why did I play great last week, but I didn't play great today? And so we want to bring understanding to it so that, again, you can create habits and routines around it. And so I no longer have to think about it anymore. And then it goes back into that unconscious state, which is where we find that flow state. And so, yeah, so again, I think, at that top level, and I love the athletes who have those habits and routines. And like, Travis, this is what I do to get in the right mindset. Awesome. And there's so many different, there's no one way. There's just the one way that's right for you as an individual. And that's what's a lot of fun, but helping players just see the simplicity in developing some of these habits and routines instead of seeing it as this ambiguous, mystery that mindset and that. No. It's being super intentional about what I'm focusing on and most importantly, what I'm not focusing on, during a performance.
If we look, I would say even 10 years ago, but for sure 20 years ago, this sort of realm of looking at the mental side of the game and how you were mentioning sort of the 4 concepts of thinking there, all these different ideas that you can get players to start thinking about themselves and their brain and how they work. That didn't exist. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on kind of the transition of organizations and people starting to pay attention to this and going, oh, hey, this is actually something that can help make me more productive, can help me become more successful, all these things that people are constantly looking for. So I'm curious to hear sort of your thoughts on like the history of this industry and where you see things going and how they are now and where you see things go.
Yeah. So I work for an organization called Limitless Minds. It was started by Russell Wilson, the quarterback, and Trevor Moawad, who was his mental conditioning coach and best friend. Trevor helped create the mental program at IMG Academy. He worked under Saban for 10 years, won a few national championships there, won championships with Kirby Smart at Georgia, worked with Maria Sharapova. He worked with some of the best athletes in the world as a mental conditioning coach. So they created Limitless Minds. Sadly, Trevor passed away a few years ago from cancer. He's a friend of mine, about the same age. And so at Limitless Minds, we kind of get to carry the torch with the work that he helped create. And so what we're trying to do is, Chad, we're trying to take what are those mental skills and habits, from the sports world, and we bring them into the corporate space. And so I think to that point, for the longest time, we've treated the mental side, again, the mental side of sports, or just the mental side of life, as such a mysterious thing. Something that we can't understand and that we can't explain. And we're getting there, but I think what we're doing is we're taking the complex and we're making it simple, taking these concepts and making them simple, which is why, proof positive that if I'm teaching them, it must be really simple, because I'm not a rocket scientist. And so if I can understand it and I can share it with others, it can't be that complex. But what I think, and a lot of this is just generational, and it's just, just like we're kind of going through a mental health awakening, right, in society right now. We're being empathic. We are being compassionate and understanding and recognizing that, yes, there are mental, a lot of people are dealing with, with mental challenges and mental issues, and they're real. And so, compared to, being raised for such a long time, and it still exists, right? It's like, oh, well, men don't share their feelings, and men can't show you can't show that you're weak, and you can't show that you have any doubt, and you can't show. So if we want to go back, Chad, to like me growing up, I was the kid who was afraid. I was the kid who, I'm the one who, quote unquote, didn't feel like a man because I was nervous and I was anxious, and wow, like, I don't want to go into that tackle because, I might get hurt. And so I felt that there was something wrong with me. And now what we understand and what we realize is like, yeah, no, like most people are dealing with doubt. Everyone has fears. Everyone is dealing with stuff. But if you're not given permission to talk about it or even admit that they're real, well, then you're just going to bury them and pretend that they're not there. And then we coach to, right? We did you ever have a coach growing up, Chad, telling you to, there's nothing to be afraid of, go out there and be fearless. Right.
Yeah. The typical, like, have fun, go out there and have fun.
Yeah. But you know what? There's nothing to be afraid of, right? Just go be fearless. And you're sitting there going, yeah, but I am afraid. Right. So if there's nothing to be afraid of, and I am afraid, well, now there's something wrong with me. And so I'm starting from the standpoint, there's something wrong with me. You just told me that this big game that we're playing in, I shouldn't be afraid. I should be fearless. And then you might say in the next sentence, you guys be brave, be courageous. Right? Well, which is it? You want me to be fearless or you want me to be courageous? Which one do you want me to be? Because they're opposites. What is required in order to have courage, Chad?
You need something to fear.
Yeah. So why you just told me to be fearless? Yeah. Now you want me to be courageous?
I've never thought of that until you said it there.
Yeah. Right? We celebrate people who are brave and courageous, and then we call them fearless. Or we say, I want you to be like them. Go out there and be brave and courageous. Be fearless. There's nothing to be afraid of. Wait a second. What are you talking about? Courage without fear isn't courage. It's comfort. So if we take just that concept of the difference between courage and confidence, we are a society that celebrates confidence. Confidence. I.e., just so you know that this is the new book I'm working on, Chad. is we celebrate confidence when we should be celebrating courage, right? I don't know if you've ever had a player or a parent reach out to you and say, "Can you help my child be more confident?" And so I get a lot of those, and I'm like, "Why? Why do you want your child?" And I know why, but I'm like, "No, why do you want your child to be more confident?" They're like, so that they play better, right? It's really holding them back. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, okay. I was like, hey, has your child ever had a game when they were super confident going into the game and they didn't play great? And they'll be like, oh yeah, that's happened. It's like, has your child ever had a game where they were kind of nervous, maybe afraid, unsure going into a game? They ended up crushing it. They're like, oh yeah, that's happened. I was like, so why do you want your child to be more confident? Because clearly feelings are not a predictor of performance. Whether they're confident or whether they're afraid does not predict how they're going to play. So we focus on the wrong things. We focus on our feelings. We focus on how do you feel? How do you feel? How do you feel? How many times, right? How many times, especially in youth soccer, oh, we played this team last week. We killed them 4-0. And you go into the next game and you lose because you were overconfident, right? Confidence doesn't always breed the behavior that we want. Courage does. Because courage is recognizing, oof, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little unsure, and I'm willing to be uncomfortable. So what I help people do, Chad, is I help them shift from their feelings. Their feelings are important. They just aren't going to help them perform. Right? So your feelings are valid. But for the performance, we don't want to focus on our feelings. We want to focus on our actions and our behaviors. So courageous is, what do we need to do in order to be successful today? And maybe you're a center midfielder and you're like, I need to run my butt off for 90 minutes, check the balls and just courage is going to be running for 90 minutes. Courage is going to be not allowing my man to turn with the ball, right? Courage is going to be, can I, as a forward, keep making runs behind lines, even when my body says I can't run another sprint? That's courage. And if I focus on those actions and behaviors, at the end of the game, I probably played a good game. But if I'm focusing on how I feel, oh, I turned that ball over, oh, I'm not feeling confident. And feelings don't do anything for us. And so just this idea of confidence and courage, and these are things that they're really, really simple ideas. But I growing up, no one was able to help me with that. No one told me that it was okay to be nervous. And no one told me like, hey, Travis, I understand, right? Hey, I know the physical side is a little intimidating to you. If I had a coach say, hey, I know the physical side is a little intimidating to you, boom, they would have validated my feelings, my fears immediately. And I wouldn't have felt like I was something wrong with me. And then if they said to me, hey, I don't need you to go out there and win every 50-50 duel. Hey, could you go out there and try to win 2 this half? Yeah, 2. All right. Yeah, I can go out there and try to win 2 this half. Yeah, just get in. Even if you don't win the ball, disrupt the play. Can you do that twice for me this half? Yeah, I can do that twice. Now I have an action to focus on. But if I have a coach that says to me, what are you afraid of? It's just a game, right? Go out there and be an animal. Go up there, be an animal. I'm thinking, nope. I can't do it, right? There's no goal, there's no action, there's no behavior behind that. It's just basically, hey, go out there and be someone that you're not. And I'm like, oh shoot, I'm not the guy. And so how we talk about the mental side and how we help people, if we validate feelings, give them support, give them actions and behaviors to focus on. And I think the more we sort of break it down into just kind of simple ideas and simple concepts, the better we're going to do in helping. And obviously this goes beyond sports as well. We're talking about sports, but this is school. This is anything that any of us are dealing with.
I love that action or that objective step where once you're given something of try and win 2 duels this half, it almost gives you that block of where you might be worrying about something that is never actually going to happen or you're not going to struggle with, but it's just worrying. It's that constant thing that humans deal with where you're constantly worrying about something. Yeah. And I think once you have I just have to win 2 duels, then nothing else is affected by that. All I have to focus on is the 2 duels. Yeah.
I was working with a high school athlete recently, Chad, and that was it. And he and I met a few times, and he's like, "Man, I'm super talented, like skill wise." He goes, "I am like really nervous with the physical side." I'm like, "I totally get it." He's like, "I totally get it." I was saying, "Oh," I'm like, "Yeah, it's okay. That's totally fine." All right, hey, and he had a game that weekend. I was like, "You got a game this weekend?" I was like, first half of the game, Do you think you could go out and win one 50-50 duel? And he goes, well, I'll try. I was like, yeah, all right. I was like, try. And if you do, see if you can win 2 in the second half. And I said, if you don't win 1 in the first half, win 1 in the second half. Right? We met the next week. I was like, hey, how did it go? And he's like, how'd the first half go? And he's like, good, man. He goes, I won a duel. I was like, what'd you do in the second half? He goes, well, I tried to win 2 duels. I'm like, did you? He goes, no, but I tried. But I was like, that's all. I'm like, yes, perfect. Right. And I was like, and then I said, Chad, I was like, hey, you've got a game this weekend. Are you more confident in your ability going into this game this weekend? He goes, yeah. Right. Confidence comes after. Confidence comes after courage. And so we need to nurture courage. And courage creates action. And then that courage is going to allow us to do some of the things that we're afraid of. The confidence comes after. And so we put so much emphasis on confidence, thinking that that's going to make people courageous. Instead, it's courage that gives people confidence after they've done the scary thing. So we just keep moving, right? We just keep moving we just keep moving the line. Just keep moving the line. This was uncomfortable. Now it's not so uncomfortable. So we move that line. Well, 1 duel becomes 2 duels, becomes 3 duels, becomes 5 duels. And we just keep moving that line instead of trying to change someone's personality.
When do you feel the most rewarded in your career?
Like those moments when you can relieve the pressure that someone feels that there's something wrong with them. I mean, it's by far the most rewarding. Like all of us are carrying around all of this mental baggage and we think that it's unique and authentic to us, and it's not. It's not. We all have it, right? We know from like brain science research, 70 to 80% of everyone's thoughts lean negative. Right? And so all the negativity that all the stories that we're all carrying around and we're thinking there's something wrong with us and no one thinks the way that I do. And I'm like, no, surprise, we all do. Everyone is carrying around that same stuff. And then it's like, okay, if that is what it is, and I don't need to try to change that, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. So that makes me feel better. And now what can we do with that to help us be more effective, right? So when I'm working with people, it's like, accept that this is the reality. So there's nothing wrong with you. We don't need to try to change that because you're not going to change it. Instead, let's be intentional about focusing on the right things that are going to help us be effective, right? So that's one of those examples, Chad, would be, don't focus on your feelings, focus on your actions. Right? Focus on behaviors. And so if I wake up in the morning and I have a big game that night, and as I go through the day, it's a good chance I'm going to keep thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Right? But if I wake up in the morning and I take some time to reflect and I think about the game coming up, and I'm like, today I'm just going to focus on being present. I'm going to focus on being present. And when I notice myself getting anxious, I'm going to pause and take a few deep breaths. I'm going to focus on being present. And then when I get to the game tonight, I'm going to talk to the coach and I'm going to say, hey, coach, what are the 2 or 3 actions that you think I need to do today in the game in order to be effective, to have a good game? Right? And he's going to give me 2 or 3 specific behaviors and actions. And then when I go out on the field, I'm going to focus on those behaviors and those actions. So when we are intentional about choosing what we're going to focus on, it doesn't eliminate that 70 to 80% of negative thoughts, but it just turns the volume down on them, because instead of just listening to them, I've chosen a focus that I know is going to be more effective for me. You know, it's like, Chad, if you woke up and had the same day back to back, right? You had the exact same day back to back. And on the first day you woke up in the morning and you're like, I'm going to be a jerk all day. It's going to go through the day and be a jerk to as many people as possible. At the end of the day, you reflect back, hey, how was your day? And you're like, I was a jerk, right? Doesn't seem like too many people like me. right? The next day you wake up, you're going to have the exact same day, and you wake up and you're like, I'm going to try to connect with as many people today as possible. And you go through your day and you're looking for ways to connect with people. And at the end of the day, you reflect back on the day and you're like, man, I had so many great connections today. How do you feel about your day? You probably feel pretty great about your day. The only thing that changed was what you chose to focus on going through your day. What we focus on is what we're going to find. And then that's going to impact the outcome. And so when you apply that to sports, what you focus on is what you're going to do. And that's going to, right, result in the outcome, the results in the outcome. Not by thinking about the outcome, but by focusing on my actions and behaviors of what I need to do in order to be successful.
I'm curious, everyone goes through life, especially in the football industry, the soccer industry, and you have these constant ups and downs. So when you're on a team, you win one week, then you have a bad practice, you lose the next week. It's like this constant just roller coaster of emotions. I'd love to hear a challenge that you faced in your life that you're now able to look back at and kind of use as inspiration to lead you forward.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, if you talk about kind of the roller coaster of emotions, good or bad, good or bad, good or bad, and that's sort of at the heart of all of this, which is we as humans, we judge everything that is happening to us, and we tend to judge it at face value. And when you judge everything at face value, well, this is good, well, this is bad, well, this is good, well, this is bad. And we almost become a victim. We become a victim to our own judgments because we're just judging everything, right? And it's like, hey, have you ever had something difficult happen to you which sucked while it was happening, and 6 months later it was the best thing that you could have gone through to make you stronger or to open up a new opportunity? Or so that's happened. And have you ever had something like, this is amazing, I can't believe I got this great opportunity, but like really it ended up not being good for you or not being a great opportunity, and you're like, oh, right? So you were on a high and then you're going to come down, but the one time you were on a low and you ended up on a high, that's just judging everything that's happening to us at face value. Well, if you think about the long-term game, or what the Simon Sinek, the infinite game, if we're playing the infinite game isn't judging everything at face value in the short term. It's playing the long game. And this is what, when I'm working with athletes especially, what we're always focused on is finding the habits and the routines that we can commit to on a daily basis that we know are good for us and we know are allowing us to be at our best. Because we also know that there's so much outside of our control, right? And soccer is the perfect sport for it, Chad, right? You can have a team, dominate a team off the field and lose, right? They did everything right and they got unlucky. And that's life. And so our goal, but that's the only thing we can control. So when we focus on controlling the controllables, which is what? My attitude, my effort, and my response. I can't control anybody else. I can't control the outcome. I can only control my attitude, my effort, my response. So I'm going to create a lifestyle of habits and routines that allow me to show up and be at my best. And for me, when I got into this career, it was, married 3 young children and starting a brand new career with no nest egg or anything to do it. And I felt like a colossal failure, Chad. Like I was making nothing. No one wanted me. And I had no work. Like I had to move my family out of our house, and we're moving, halfway across the country. And I just don't know how this is going to work out. But I've got to keep going, and I've got to be a good husband. And I've got to be a good father, and I've got to and so by going through those really, really difficult periods of life when I didn't know how things were going to work out, when other things do work out, I can reflect back and say, wow, there's going to be a downside of this roller coaster where things are going to get difficult again. And I can say, oh, I've done this already. I know how to go through the rough stuff. So what is the constant in this equation? It's me. It's what's my attitude? What's my effort? How do I respond to situations? And that's the steady line that moves through the roller coaster. It's the analogy, you've probably heard it before, Chad. What's the difference between a thermostat and a thermometer, right? The thermometer is a victim to the temperature that it's in. It just tells you if it's 89 outside, it's 89. The thermostat sets the temperature of the room. It might be 89 outside, but inside this room, I'm going to set the temperature at 75. The thermostat regulates. The thermometer is just a victim. And so when we're the thermometer, we're like, it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad, it's good, it's bad. We are allowing the outside elements to control us. When we're the thermostat, we're like, yeah, I might be around chaos right now, but I get to control, I get to regulate how I show up. And I think, as I work with professional athletes, I'm like, you guys realize that you've signed up to live a life of uncertainty on steroids. Not literally on steroids, but
hopefully not.
Like your whole life as a professional athlete, so much is outside of your control. The owner, the coach, the teammates, the injuries, all this stuff. So you need to get really, really good at controlling what you can control, which is going to be your habits, your routines, your attitude, your effort, your response, because that's it. But if you can own that, it won't matter what's going on around you. You will always be putting yourself in the best possible position to be successful today, and then tomorrow, and then the next day. And even though things might not be going well right now, when we stick to our habits and our routines, it's eventually going to work out. It might not be how we wanted it to work out, but it's eventually going to work out.
We've been discussing this sort of like roller coaster concept, and something I've dived into recently is the sort of concept around emotional stability. And I think it's quite relatable with what you're talking about with these wins, losses, ups, downs, constant. I'm curious your thoughts on emotional stability, what you found within your research in terms of working with athletes and people in business, sort of all these different clients that you've had. I'm curious some of the learnings or understandings that you've gained from that, because it's something that I'm really passionate about, where I see it almost as a skill for myself, where I have a really strong stability towards emotion. And I find that sort of like you were mentioning the thermostat versus thermometer, where I can almost guide the way my thought patterns think versus an emotion guiding me. And I think that's a big change. And so I'm curious your thoughts on just the overall concept of emotional stability.
Yeah, I love that, Chad. I think of it this way, right? We don't want to let our emotions control us. We want to control our emotions, right? When we tend to make mistakes is when our emotions get hijacked and they are now guiding our actions and our behaviors instead of the other way around, right? So to be able to recognize that our emotions can be a tool to guide our energy, not only our energy, but those around us, right? A lot of times I'll be watching a game and, you'll see a coach who's kind of maybe flipping out on the referee or flipping out on a player or something. And, so the person next to me would be like, wow, I can't believe the coach is that angry. And I'm like, they're really not. I'm like, it's performative.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's performative. There are times, sure, when a coach or a player will kind of lose their mind. And we see those kind of mistakes happen all the time. I'm like, but for the most part, coaches understand that their emotions have an impact on what's going on around them. So there's a performance element to it, which is you're looking at a situation going, what emotion is needed right now for this situation? As a coach, do I need to inject some fire into my team? Or do I need to model some poise and emotional control? So they see that everything's okay. So as a coach or as a leader, you're trying to kind of like puppet strings that based on what is needed at that moment. But that is a conscious thing. We talk about, right, being the observer. That's when we have a certain level of emotional and mental, control, where we are conscious of the emotions that we're expressing instead of being unconscious. And so great athletes do that as well. Again, sometimes I'm working with athletes, and that's why I asked that one player, hey, do you tend to play better when you're happy or when you're angry? Because based on the player, or even based on the game, it's finding a way to use an emotion that's going to help your performance. One player that I love who actually has amazing emotional control from the national team is Weston McKennie for the U.S., right? Weston is one of those guys who he's really great at just regulating. He is a thermostat on the field. Right. You look at some of those games, those highly emotional games with Mexico and the USA, and a lot of throat grabbing, and there's a lot of stuff. And Weston just kind of gets himself in the middle of it. And he's got guys grabbing his throat, is ripping his jersey off. And Weston, he's not losing his control. He might be actually trying to amp theirs up a little bit to get them to lose their control, but he is just not taking the bait. And there's a great picture of one of the U.S.-Mexico games where the Mexican player, and this isn't anti-Mexico at all, it's such a great rivalry. 30 seconds previous, this Mexican player has Weston by the throat, right? And then 30 seconds later, they're sharing a water bottle. Like Weston's got the water bottle, and he's like, hey, gives the guy the water bottle. And it's just like, yeah, like, so it's that level of, we don't want, because when a lot of people think about, like, we talk about neutral thinking at Limitless Minds, like having neutrality, which is, people mistake neutrality for being unemotional. And it can look unemotional, but what we want, neutral allows us to have emotional control so that we can use our emotions as a positive tool or as an effective tool, instead of letting our emotions hijack us into making decisions and actions that obviously don't help us.
If we have someone listening into today's episode and they're inspired by your journey and your work now, I would love to hear some advice that you maybe have for people, even just wanting to work in the sports business or sports industry as a whole, but also more inclined to what you do specifically. I think it's a field that will be expanding and sort of one of those future growth fields. And so I'd love to hear sort of your advice and maybe some guidance for those interested in that.
Yeah. So again, like my sort of, I got into the industry sort of, I don't know, the side door, the back door. I don't know. I parachuted in. I don't know how I got into this world, Chad. So obviously, this industry, this field is filled with people who are sports psychologists and come from, psychology backgrounds. That wasn't my path. That wasn't my journey. But that track does exist in a very traditional route, right? Whether it's an undergrad degree or a master's degree in psychology or sports psychology. And I spent 3 years at IMG Academy down in Florida, which again is, there's opportunities in these different industries, from starting to work with high school teams, or, a lot of times if you're taking that degree and you're at a college or a university, you can start interning with the sports teams on campus. And so, there's a very sort of traditional route to it. I'm not the poster boy for the traditional route, but I wouldn't want someone to necessarily follow my path. But the industry as a whole, Chad, is all over the map. You've got professional teams in all sports, right? You might have one team. I know one team in Major League Baseball, at least recently, they had one sports psychologist who wasn't even full-time. They were just kind of on a retainer where a player could reach out at any time and use them. And then you have other teams that have a team of mental conditioning coaches. So it's sort of all over the map, right? And you have, in colleges is similar. So it's a continuously evolving industry. But to your point, it's only going to get bigger as we're able to normalize the mental aspect of the game, which we all know is, all the talent in the world means nothing if your thoughts and your mind keeps getting in the way. And so as we are able to start helping people and helping athletes and helping individuals understand how the power of their thoughts and how to use and tools to be able to regulate and manage that more effectively. It's, I think we're going to look back probably 20, 30 years from now and be like, I can't believe it took us this long to put such a priority on it. But it's only growing.
We're going to wrap things up here with some quick fire questions.
All right.
First off, I want to hear your favorite club team growing up. Who did you support? Who is your soccer fandom around?
Yeah, so I grew up. I'm 50. I'm old, right? Like soccer made in Germany. Like I could watch, maybe one game every couple of weeks, and it would be a taped game of a Bundesliga game. And it wasn't until FIFA came along when I was in college. FIFA came along in college, where it's like more people had this understanding of like these European club teams. And for me, Chad, it's like it was the U.S. national team. It was like my club team, which wasn't a club team. It was just the national team. It was like that was like the most international soccer I could see growing up as a kid, is whenever the national team might have a game on TV, and watching them qualify for the 90 World Cup, in 89 is when I was, young high schooler. And so it was like, for me, it was all about the national team. I loved the national team. And then to come full circle and to be able to work with the national team for 3 years and go to a World Cup, like that's like crazy dream come true kid stuff. But yeah, so people ask me now, like, who are your favorite club teams? I'm like, my favorite club teams are the club teams that the Americans are playing on. Those are the teams I cheer for.
We've taught now, we've been learning about in this episode about the live yes and mentality. So I love that. But do you have a favorite quote or saying, something else that you maybe live by, or something that's just passionate for you?
Yeah, I share. Obviously, my favorite mantra is "Leap and the net will appear." But there's a quote by Wayne Dyer. Wayne Dyer was like he was a writer, he was an author, he was a speaker, wrote like 30 plus books. He passed away a few years ago, but one of his quotes, I use it all the time. And his quote was, "When you change the way you see the world you see changes." Say that one more time. When you change the way you see the world you see changes. And so whenever I'm talking to anybody, I was talking to a group of kids in Flint yesterday, and I shared that quote. I'm like, just replace world with whatever challenge you're dealing with, right? When you change the way you see your coach, the coach you see changes. When you change the way you see your teammate, the teammate you see changes. It just reinforces the idea that I am in control of how I perceive my life, my world. So if I have a problem with my coach, if I can change my perception about that coach, it's probably going to change my relationship with that coach. And we can apply that to everything.
You gave a book recommendation already. I think it was called Range, right? You said was the
Range, by David Epstein. Yep.
Do you have another book, one more that we can give to the listeners that's something that's just inspired you recently?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I'm assuming every listener is going to buy my book, of course. But after
that's a good start.
After you purchase that on Amazon, of course. No, check. You know what book I love? Oh, there's so many. But for people who want to dive more into just the mindset aspect and read a really, really interesting and fun read, check out Timothy Galway's The Inner Game of Tennis. It was actually one of the books, it's probably 40 years old at this point, that was kind of one of the first forays into kind of like the sports psychology side of things. And I know for a while when Pete Carroll was at USC, it was required reading for everybody on his football team was The Inner Game of Tennis. And it's less about tennis and it's more about the inner game, the mental side of just life and sports. That one is beautiful. And my bonus pick would be, for y'all, and it's a quick read. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Not The Art of War, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. Again, it gets into the mental side of what are the mental blocks that prevent us from kind of living our purpose or doing big things. And it's always internal. It's always an inside job. It's never an outside job. It's always an inside job.
Do you have some favorite hobbies that when you have a chance to relax, either with the kids or your family, do you have something just to enjoy yourself?
Yeah, I mean, outside of like the normal, like just reading and playing games and stuff with the family. I love my kids are all older now, like high school and older, and so now they're competitive, and so I love, like, we've always played ping pong, and now we're doing pickleball, and we'll be getting up on the lake, family lake up in here in a few weeks, and I just love hanging out with family and friends, and deep conversations are my, and I'm a pretty extroverted guy. Improvisation is when I'm most alive, when I'm on stage, but I just love having deep and meaningful conversations with friends and family.
Pickleball's been a big one for me ever the last few months. It's all I do during the week. I love it. Good form of exercise.
Yeah.
So the last one here, if you could sit down, so I'll let you have one sort of soccer related person and one just general person. But if you could sit down for dinner with them, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Oh, so one soccer and one non-soccer?
Yeah, if you want to do that.
Oh man, I always struggle with these questions with the who would I sit down with, dead or alive. All right, on the soccer side of things, who would I really want to? I would love to sit down. I need a translator, but I'd love to sit down with Maradona, with Diego Maradona. I watched his documentary on HBO. Was super, super fascinating for those of you who haven't had a chance to see it. And to me, he was just, I think when I think about him, I just think of just a genius who just kind of struggled with all the temptations of life. But there was so much genius in there. I would love to just sit and hear his stories and hear how he sort of mentally approached things. Outside of soccer, man, there's so many amazing, inspiring people. There's, whether it's religious figures or spiritual figures. My mom passed away a few years ago. I'd love to hang out with her again. But yeah. I would say probably Wayne Dyer, the guy I mentioned, who passed away a few years ago. And if anyone knows who George Mumford is, George Mumford wrote The Mindful Athlete. He worked with the Chicago Bulls, the LA Lakers, and I think he's working with a pro team right now on mindfulness. But there's such a presence and a mindfulness to life and to sport, and hopefully that's what I try to bring to it. But Wayne Dyer brought such a grounded mindfulness approach to life in a non-complex way.
This has been a great episode, super impactful. I think even for myself, I've gained a ton of knowledge from it. So first of all, thank you for that. If there's any last words from your end, if you want to shout out the book, shout out Live Yes And, feel free to do so if people want to learn more about what you're doing, and then we can wrap things up.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, Chad. No, I mean, on socials, I'm at Live Yes And I love connecting, love chatting. If anyone's listening and they have a question or something you want to follow up with, yeah, just reach out to me, message. I will absolutely get back to you. And my book, which is on Amazon, is 3 words for getting unstuck. Live Yes And. For anyone here who has a child or you're young and you're interested in the mental side of things, I'm just finishing up a program right now, a virtual program on Yes And mindset training, but I'll probably be doing another one here in the next couple months. So yeah, feel free to reach out, and this has been a lot of fun, Chad.
Of course, I'll have all the links below so that people can find you wherever they need to. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right, take care.